would like to introduce our next special guest speaker, Catherine Ashton. She is an amazing woman who has had an extremely challenging last few years, but from that pain, she's found her purpose, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to her now. Please make her very welcome.
You'll love me that I took my time to put the timer on, because if anyone's met me here in the last 24 hours, you know I like to chat. So, I'd just like to acknowledge just personally the land on which we gather today for the Wadwurrung clan of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to extend my thanks to anyone and my respects to any elders that are here and present with us today from First Nations. So, as Peace Lovely said, my name's Catherine Ashton. I am the founder of Critical Info. Critical Info is a social enterprise, and I deal with death daily. I help people with end-of-life planning, and I'm also the host of the Don't Be Caught Dead podcast. I know, it's a great name, isn't it? I have had the privilege in the last 2 years of interviewing everyone from Rosie Batty, and this was when she was just about to, or had just released her second book, and it was nearing the 10-year anniversary of her son's murder, Luke's murder, and we had a very long conversation about what grief looks like after 10 years. I have also then spoken to Bill Edgar, who is the coffin confessor. So Bill is the one that you go to if you want certain secrets divulged when you're in the grave, or if you'd like to actually be buried on a motorcycle sitting on it. He's the one you go to. But one thing that all of these stories have in common is when people find out what I do, is that everyone comes up to me and shares their own personal story. We all have a story of someone who we have experienced the death of a loved one and the impact that that has had on us. Sometimes those stories are good, and sometimes they're not so great. The difference between the stories being good and not so great comes when we do two things. We actually have planning, or, let me check my notes, the conversation. And you're all looking at the slides, and I realise that that's the one we're supposed to be on. So why do I do this work, and why is it important to me? This will give you some idea. Life can really change in an instant. In January 2019, I was on my way to work like any normal day, and if anyone's experienced the traffic in Melbourne on the Monash Freeway, it was a car park, but unfortunately the car behind me didn't realise that, and I ended up being rear-ended. So that ended up with me having emergency spinal surgery, developing chronic pain, and leaving my job at the Royal Botanic Gardens, where I was producing major events, which I thought I was going to be there forever. I'd been there for 13 years and unfortunately had to say goodbye to that role. And I really didn't know what I was going to do, you know. I was in my early 40s, I was qualified for nothing but conservation and land management or running events, so not exactly conducive to stress and managing chronic pain. So I was a bit of at a loss, and then in February 2023, my husband's best friend died. and he had no family in Australia, and his 2 adult children lived in the United States. So we had to step in as custodians, and we literally had to go there, you know, take the keys from the police and clear up his apartment. And I thought, look, I'll just gather some information for the kids so we can get started when they arrive. I couldn't find any information in the one spot. I found everyone was very good at telling their part of the story, and I just found it really challenging to find the information for them. So what I did, you know, good producer that I was, I started an Excel spreadsheet. And that Excel spreadsheet is now a platform that helps people learn about their choices, document them, and share them with loved ones. But what I found is that, and has anyone had the experience, put your hand up if you've had the experience of ever having to do the administration after a loved one's died? Okay, so you can pop your hand down. But I am going to ask you this question. Is it fair to say that's what it's like when you have to actually step into the shoes and try and close the accounts of a loved one? The challenges that we had is we didn't know whether he wanted to be cremated, whether he wanted to be buried. We didn't know if he had superannuation. Hell, we didn't even know whether where his car keys were, and did he actually park his car downstairs in the apartment lot, because we didn't know. We had to go and check. So when you're asked to step into someone else's life and manage that when you don't have all the answers, it's really, really challenging. And we all carry that responsibility, or that weight of that responsibility and that legacy that we leave. So the one thing that we can do now is how we act and what we put in place to make a difference for those that we leave behind. So here's a few things that we can do. The first one is organ donation. When I first got my licence, it was part of my registration process with my licence. You can now go online and do that on the Donate Life register. You can check whether you're a registered organ donor, or you can actually go through that process. The second thing is, you know, the necessary documents that we need. You know, most of the usual that we are aware of is your will, power of attorney. If anyone is here taking care of older parents, you'd be very much aware of the importance of advanced care directives. But for me, and for someone who was in a car accident on my way to work, I would say that they're important for every single one of us, because they're the documents that speak for us when we can't. And we never know what in our life is going to involve, and we never know what's going to, you know, it's going to throw at us. So these are not documents that you do one day. They're actually documents that you can do now. Also, the things that some people aren't aware of until it's too late is the fact that our superannuation and our life insurance policies, they actually don't form part of our estate. So they're an entirely separate process that you need to go through. And, you know, the joys, a few things I'll let you know, that when you're in this process of dealing with these different organisations, there's no standard policies. They're all different. And because we live in Australia, every law is different in every single state. So that just adds to the challenge of what you have to deal with. So if we can actually do a little bit of the jigsaw puzzle, because as you can see, every little bit counts of what's actually on there. And they've actually estimated that it's roughly 200 hours of death administration you have to do after a loved one dies. So any little bit we do will make a massive difference to our loved ones in the end. And we all run businesses. Who in this room has a business continuity plan? Nowhere near enough hands that have been raised. Our friend ran a painting company Fortunately, he didn't have any employees, but, you know, we still had to find his receipts and who his accountant was, because even in death, we have to actually complete our tax returns. But not just that, I had a phone call 2 weeks ago from a woman whose son was an apprentice, and the owner of the business had died. And she was concerned because she hadn't heard from the owner's wife whether he still had a job or not. And this was 6 weeks after he died. So we have a responsibility of business owners to make sure we have plans in place for when we can't turn up to work, and protect those that we love, but also those that we employ. The other thing, our key contacts. Who do you have that you trust that will come into your home and pick up some toiletries if you find yourself in hospital? Sorry. Who will, you know, be there to feed your pet? They're the sort of people that you need to have these conversations with. Find 2 of them, you know, put their details in your phone, make sure that they know that they're listed as a key contact for you. You know, that's not a surprise that you want to give someone. Your pets, make sure you know whether there's medication that they need. Tell someone, document it. And as I said, legacy is what we choose today. It's the choices that we make that will make a difference on how we actually impact those we leave behind and how they think of us. And life is totally unpredictable. Make sure you have your support team and talk to them now before it becomes critical. And each and every one of you will have received one of these today on the table when you arrived. It had tea bags attached. I would encourage you to put the kettle on, choose one of the questions, sit down with your bestie or a loved one and have the conversation, because it can really make the difference. So it's the small steps that we make today that will actually make a difference in our loved ones' lives moving forward. And you'll probably have seen Sid and the stall out in the foyer. So please come and have a chat to me and feel free to connect, and we're here to support. Thank you.